Hi there, and welcome to a project video where you'll build and deploy a fully responsive website with modern UX and UI in React.js and Tailwind. With a stunning opening section, high-quality images and gradients, business stats, reusable feature sections with call-to-action buttons, testimonials, and much more. WhoBank is the best modern business landing page that you can currently find on YouTube. By building this single web application with me, you'll get the knowledge needed to build any website you can imagine. There are many tutorials out there teaching you how to create a website consisting of a navigation bar, a few divs, and a footer. Boring, right? Today, you'll learn how to develop a professional website using the most in-demand technologies today, React.js and Tailwind. No extra dependencies, you'll build everything from scratch and deploy it to the internet so that you can share it with your friends and potential clients and put it on your portfolio. This video is perfect for you if you want to learn how to transform a Figma design into a fully functioning website, if you want to improve your CSS skills, and if you want to learn how to create modern and responsive websites. You might be wondering, what are the prerequisites for building such an amazing website? This course is entirely beginner-friendly. We're going to start simple and then move to more complex topics as we go. I'll explain every step of the way. Alongside building this application, you'll also learn React functional components and their reusability, React file and folder structure. You'll achieve mastery using Tailwind CSS, fundamental CSS properties to master Flex, from soft and pleasant animations to complex gradients, perfectly placed media queries for satisfactory responsiveness on all devices, and at the end, you'll learn how to deploy your websites to incredibly fast servers and give them a custom domain name using Hostinger. If this video reaches 20,000 likes, I'm recording a second modern UI and UX video. Before we dive into the project, I have an incredibly important announcement for you. We've recently added the free resources section to the jsmastery.pro website. The link is in the description. So from now on, alongside the professional project-based courses such as Filmpire and NFT Marketplace, you can get entirely free guides and ebooks about React, Web3, and front-end, back-end, and full-stack development. If you decide to get the courses by using the link in the description, a special discount code will automatically be applied for you during checkout. With that said, let's dive right into today's video. Before we start building out our website, let's first get the hosting and the domain name for our new project, your portfolio, or any site you'll create in the future. You can click the link in the description to scroll through the website with me. Hostinger is my personal recommendation, and right now they're offering crazy deals, so I simply needed to show this to you. They offer a great price-to-quality ratio, high-speed servers, and most importantly, 24/7 chat support. Let's see what's offered with some of the most popular hosting plans. Hostinger's plans are incredibly cheap. I mean, $2.99 a month for hosting for 100 websites, and you also get a free SSL certificate. That means that you'll have HTTPS security. In this case, we're going to go with the premium shared hosting because it also offers a few great things that you need when building any website. It gives you a free email account, free SSL, but most importantly, it gives you a free domain name. We need our modern and professional website to be fast, reliable, and credible. For that reason, having a custom domain name, custom email name, and fast website load times will make you stand out from the crowd. Since I've partnered with Hostinger, they decided to give you an even bigger discount. You can find the link and the discount code in the description. Enjoy! Once you select the plan, here we have to choose the period of our hosting. With the crazy discount going on right now, I'll definitely choose 48 months to save the most money. And down below, you can choose your payment method, and then you can enter your coupon code. As you can see, JavaScript Mastery is already entered here for me, but if it hasn't been for you, just type JavaScript Mastery. That's going to give you an even bigger discount on your hosting package. After you make a purchase, you'll be redirected to the Hostinger's dashboard. I'll see you there. And we're back inside of the Hostinger's dashboard. In this case, it opened up automatic guidance for the hosting we have just purchased. So let's go ahead and click Start Now. It's asking us whether we want to migrate a website or build a website. In this case, we are building it, of course. Now it's asking us whether we want to code on WordPress or on some other CMS. In this case, you can click Skip. I'll start from scratch. And finally, right here, you can claim your free domain. So let's go ahead and click Select. And in here, you can choose a name for your new website. You don't have to do this step right now if you're not yet certain on what domain name you want to choose. It doesn't have to be for this video. It can be for your own portfolio or for your future clients. In this case, I'm going to switch to .com and go for something like modern-business-website. Again, we just need something simple in this case, and I can click Search. This domain is available, and we can click Continue. With that said, we are done with our setup. We can click Finish, and we're ready to start building out our application. And there we go. Our setup is being initialized as we speak. Now we'll be able to dive straight into the development, and then at the end of this video, we're going to come back in here, and then we're going to deploy our website to Hostinger's fast servers. Great. So we can click Manage Site, and then at the end, we're going to come straight back here and finalize the deployment. With that said, let's dive straight into the code. If you've been watching JavaScript Mastery for some time now, then you know that we always start from scratch, and I teach you every step of the way. So we're starting by creating an empty folder on our desktop. Let's name it bank_modern_app. And then we can drag and drop that folder into an empty Visual Studio Code window. You can expand that window, and we are ready to start coding out our great application. Let's go under View and then Terminal. And we are ready to initialize our React application. Create React App has been leading the industry in initializing React applications for years now. But Vite is a new tool that recently came in, and it is much faster to create a React application using Vite. So let's head to vitejs.dev, get started, and the only thing we need to do to initialize our React application is run npm create vite add latest. Right inside of our Visual Studio Code, we can run that command and click Enter. Of course, make sure that you have Node.js downloaded and installed. If you don't already, just Google Node.js download and install it, and then rerun this command. Our project name is going to be bank_modern_app. You can, of course, call it however you want to. And in this case, I'm going to choose React. We can also choose just plain React without TypeScript this time. And that's it. We can cd into bank_modern_app, and we can run npm install to install all of the needed dependencies. As you can see, this was much quicker than using Create React App. On my machine, it took only 8 seconds. Now let's try to run it by running npm run dev. In just 1 second, we get our URL. Hold Control and then click this link right here. And just like that, our starter is ready. But even more importantly, if you check it out a bit, you're going to notice that it has a much more minimal config than our usual Create React App. We only have main, app, some styles, assets, and that's about it. Now that the app is initialized, we can start by installing all of the necessary dependencies that we'll be using throughout this video. Believe it or not, we're not going to clutter our package.json a lot. There is going to be only one single dependency to build our entire modern bank application. And it's not even going to go right here under dependencies. It's going to be a dev dependency that's going to help us style our application. By quickly going to Tailwind documentation, we can see that we only need to run a couple of commands to install and set up Tailwind. We're going to take our first command from here. We can go to View and then Terminal. And then we can stop it from running by pressing Ctrl+C and then Y. Now you can type npm install -D Tailwind CSS, Post CSS, and Auto Prefixer, and press Enter. After that, we'll also have to copy the following command, and that's going to be npx Tailwind CSS init-p, and press Enter. There we go. That created our config files. So let's set them up. Let's first go to vite.config.js. As you can see, this file only specifies that we're using React. Now, when it comes to tailwind.config.cjs, it is currently quite empty. So down below in the description, you'll find a link to a GitHub gist that's going to contain the updated tailwind.config.cjs file. And you can simply copy it and paste it right here. I already created for you some predefined styles, and these are incredibly simple. We just added some colors so we can easily reference them, some font families, and some screen sizes. That's it. No logic is happening here. You're gonna do everything else on your own. And with that said, believe it or not, we have all of the dependencies that we need. So let's set up our main files and assets. If we go to main.jsx, inside of here, we're importing React, React DOM, and also app from app. We're also importing the index CSS and just rendering the app. This is good to go. Now, when it comes to the index.css, this is where we want to make use of Tailwind. So again, next to that tailwind.config.cjs, you'll be able to find another file that's going to be index.css. In this file, I prepared for us some gradients, as you can see right here, some basic styles and keyframes, but more so, we only imported Tailwind right here and also imported some fonts. Everything else is just setting some text gradients. Great. So now we have Tailwind set up as well, and we have some basic styles we can use. Now we can focus on app.jsx. We can completely delete everything that's in here, and we can run RAFCE. That's going to automatically generate a React arrow function for us. If this didn't work for you, you can go to extensions and then type ES7 plus React Redux React Native snippets. You can install that, and then you can run RAFCE, and it should work. Now we have a plain file. And as you can see, we're no longer importing app.css, so we can delete that. And we can also delete the assets folder. The reason why we're deleting the assets folder is because we're going to have our own. So in the description, you're going to find a link to a zipped assets folder. You can simply unzip it and then paste it right here inside of the source folder. As you can see, these are mainly some logos, icons, and assets that we're going to use throughout our great application. It would take a lot of time to find them, and we'll be able to reference them from our React application. Great. With that said, we can continue by setting up our basic file and folder structure. Next to main, index.css, and app.jsx, we're going to also have two different folders. The first one is going to be called constants. And then inside of that constants folder, we're also going to have a new index.js file. Inside of that file, we want to put all of the static text that's going to be shown on the website. And when I say static text, I simply mean things like these: the titles, descriptions, number of active users, as well as some lists like this one, or maybe even in the footer. We want to have pre-done lists of links so we can simply map through them and not spend time by writing each one by hand. This is going to help us to develop our app more quickly, and it's also going to ensure that if you give this website to a non-technical user, they can simply go into that constants file and change things themselves if they want to. So you can find this constants index.js file in that GitHub gist down below, and you can paste it. I think you can see what I was telling you. In here, we just have some arrays with lists of IDs, logos, or even some social media icons and lists of links that we want to include in the footer. It's just basic plain data. But now a user can come to this file and they can change things however they want to. They don't have to know how to code. They simply need to come here and change something. Of course, this is also useful if you want to transfer this application to use a CMS later down the road. The design we'll be using today is just one out of countless phenomenal designs created by 1 Week Wonders. They gave me permission to use this design to teach you how to develop a website based off of that design. 1 Week Wonders offers many impressive designs, so definitely check out their site and Dribble pages. The link will be in the description. But with that said, we have everything we need, and we are ready to start coding out our great application. First, we're going to start by creating the structure and the layout. Inside of this app, we're going to import all of the other components, and then we'll be able to implement them one by one. So let's get started. To start creating our layout, we can start by creating a div that's going to wrap our entire application. That div is going to have a class name equal to bg-primary, w-full, and overflow-hidden. Of course, we need to have something inside of that div to be able to see it. So for now, let's simply create an h1 and let's say hello world. Great. Now, if your React functional component simply returns JSX, then you can completely remove that return statement, remove the curly braces, and just have the parenthesis right here. And then you can do it like this and get rid of one more level of indentation. This just looks cleaner. Great. So now let's run our application and see if we can see the hello world in the browser. We can open up our terminal and we can run npm run dev. Let's control click the link and click navigate. And there we go. We can see just this black rectangle, but if we hover over it, you can see hello world, which means that everything is working properly. We just have to add more elements to this layout. So let's continue. Now inside of this div, we can remove the h1 and I'm going to create one more div. This div is going to wrap our navbar and it's going to have some special styles. I created a file that has a lot of styles that we'll be using throughout our entire application. And trust me when I tell you, this is the last file that I'm going to give you access to. Everything else from now on, you're going to code on your own. I just want to provide you with a few files to get us up and running so you can learn as much as possible in as little time as possible. So in that same GitHub gist, you'll be able to find a style.js file, which is going to go right inside of our source. You can copy it from there and paste it right here. As you can see, we have some styles which are going to help with the layout and some basic headings, paragraphs, flex centers, flex starts, and so on. These are just collections of a couple of different class names that are tied to one single string. So it's a lot easier to use them. So now let's go back into our app and right here, let's import those styles. So we can say import styles from /styles. And now inside of this div, we can say class name is equal to, that's going to be a backtick, and then $ and curly braces, styles.paddingx. And now if you're wondering what this does, is you first have to fix this mistake I've done, and that is going to be just coming from style right here. Now you can control click it and you can see the padding X. Essentially, it's going to say padding X is 6. It's going to give it some padding. And on smaller devices, it's going to give it some more padding. That's essentially it. Now we can add an additional class name such as styles.flexCenter. Inside of there, we want to have one more div. And this div is going to have a class name. And then again, it's going to be backtick, $ curly braces, and then styles.boxWidth. Again, if you're interested in what this class does, simply click it, and you can see that it gives it a full width. Now, inside of there, we want to render a navbar. Later on, this is going to be a navbar component, but for now, we can leave it as a basic text. So this part right here forms our navbar. Let's add an empty line right here, and let's continue with our next step, which is going to be our hero section, the main part of our application. We want to have a div, and we want to give it a class name that's going to be, again, dynamic. First, we want to say bg-primary for background color, and then we want to say styles.flex start. One more time, we're going to have an inner div, and this div is going to have a class name equal to, again, a dynamic styles.box width. And inside of there, we want to render our future hero component. And a hero is just the main star of the show. In our application, a hero is this part that you can see right here. Everything that is visible as soon as you load the page. With that said, we can move to everything that is below the hero. And just to simplify the process, we can duplicate what we have here. So that's going to be almost the same. That's going to be BG primary, styles flex start, and we're just missing one. That's going to be styles dot padding x. There we go. And now in there we have box width, but this time instead of hero, we want to render all of our different components. So that's going to be stats, as in statistics for our bank. We want to have the business section. We want to have the billing section as well. We need to have a card deal section, a testimonials section, clients section, click to action section, and finally a footer section. All of these elements, which are right now basic text elements, we're going to transform into real components so we can dive into them and we can actually code them out. So let's do just that. We can right click inside of our source folder and create a new folder called components. React is all about components, reusing them and making sure that everything is as readable as possible. Every component needs to do its own thing. So let's create the basic structure for all of the components that we're going to use throughout this entire application. That is going to take some time up front, but trust me, it's going to save us a lot of time in the future. So let's create our first component, which is going to be called billing.jsx. As soon as it opens, we can run refce there to create a basic structure. And we can move to our next component. That's going to be business.jsx. Again, refce and move to our next component. We have a button component.jsx, refce, and move forward. You get the point. I'm gonna keep doing that and keep repeating that for all of the components that we're gonna be using. The next component on our list is the card deal.jsx component. And again, you can run refce. The next one on our list is going to be the clients section.jsx. You can run refce. The next one on our list is going to be a CTA.jsx, and you can run refce again. The next one on our list is going to be the feedback card.jsx, and again, we can run refce. Then we have the footer, so we can run footer.jsx and then run refce. Next, we have the get started section, so we can say get started.jsx and run refce. After that, we have our hero section, our main section, .jsx, and we can again run refce. Then we're going to have our navbar, a really important component, of course, and we can run refce. We finally have our stats.jsx to see what our bank has done throughout the last period. And finally, we have the testimonials.jsx, again run refce. Great. So now if we go back into our app, we can import all of these components. For example, we can say import navbar from, that's going to be /components and then navbar, like this. And now we can repeat this for the hero section as well. So we can say import hero from hero. But as you can notice right here, we have quite a lot of components. So our imports would take more lines than the actual code itself. And that's not something you want to do. It would look something like this. That's not good. So there's a little trick that I want to show you. If you create a new index.js file inside of the components, that file is going to export all of the components in one line. But of course, to be able to export them, we first have to import them right here. So we can say import navbar from navbar. And just to speed this process up, I'm going to provide this index.js file to you in that GitHub just below. So you can simply copy it and paste it right here. As you can see, we are importing all of these components, and then we are then exporting them from the index file. Now, what this is going to allow us to do is to go back, and instead of importing every single component in its own line, we can now say import navbar, but inside of the curly braces. And that's going to be coming from components, only components. And now you can add to this line every other component import as well. So in our case, that's going to be navbar, hero, and I'm going to copy all of these and paste them here because we want to import all of those as well. But I'm going to put them in one line so it's easier to read. There we go. As you can see, I have line wrapping turned on in my settings, so now it's going to show up nicely right here. And this is a neat little trick that you can use to make the code of your React and Next.js applications more readable. If this is something that you found interesting, I would suggest checking out the FilmPar course on the JS Mastery Pro platform. It teaches you how to code using React from a beginner to a professional level. So just click the link in the description and a special YouTube discount will be automatically applied to you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the course. But with that said, let's proceed with the development. Now that we have all of these components imported, let's transform these text elements into actual components. Let's double-click the first word, and then let's hold the Alt key, and then keep double-clicking on each new word to select it. Now we're going to do some Visual Studio Code shortcut magic. Okay, you have everything selected. Now press your Control key and arrow left to move to the left side of the word. Then open up the opening tag, hold Control and then press arrow right, and now close the tag. With this simple trick, we instantly turned all of these text elements into components. If for whatever reason this didn't work for you, just manually add the opening and closing tags to every single one of these components. This is also something that we teach in the FilmPar course. But with that said, we now have the basic structure. And let's check out our app in the browser. As you can see right here, it is just an empty black screen. But if we select it, you can see that we have our components right here. Now we created the entire structure. I know it took some time, but now we are ready to start developing this beautiful modern bank application. So let's go back into the code and let's get started by control clicking to move into our Navbar component. Navbar is the first on the list. Now that we're finally starting to code, we can close all of our files by holding Control and then pressing W a couple of times. And let's go back to our Navbar. There we go. So now we can open up our browser side by side with our editor so that we can see the changes that we make live. And there we go. On the right side of our display, we have our browser, and then on the left side, we have our Visual Studio Code. Now, of course, before we start creating our Navbar right here, we can compare it with the finalized app I have open, but it might be even better to start comparing it to our design, because that's the primary thing we're learning here, how to transform a design into your React application. There we go. I've opened the design in my browser, and I'm gonna also share the link with you so that you have it open as well while we're developing this application together. So we can first zoom in on the Navbar. We can see the photo right here, and then on the left side, we can see some links. So let's go ahead and code out the Navbar first. What we can also notice is there's quite a lot of different assets. So if we click right here, we can select that. You can see that is the robot hand. We also have this asset right here, which is a little card, and all of these images right here. If you're working for some companies that have more money or better clients, you're going to collaborate with some great designers. And if you're lucky, they're going to provide this design with you. And then you'll be able to just focus on coding. But in some cases, unfortunately, you'll have to be both the designer and the coder as well. But thankfully, in this case, we have prepared for you a phenomenal design so that you can use it and you can code along just as we are. As you know, I've already given you access to all the assets. So when it comes to the design, we'll be just referencing the styles and the overall look and feel of the website. So now let's go back to our site and let's start with the navbar. We can first import the use state hook from React. And we can also import a couple of assets. That's going to be close, logo, and menu coming from /assets. Alongside the assets, we're going to also import nav links coming from /constants. Now, if you want to see what these are, simply control-click them, and you can see that it is an array containing a list of objects that have the ID and the title. These are our nav links. Great. So let's start coding it out. We first are going to have the HTML5 semantic nav tag. Let's also give it some class names, such as w-full, flex, padding y-6, justify-between, items-center, and a special navbar style. Now let's go back to our website and let's save it. Now, as you can see, we immediately got a lot more height to our navbar. And if you're wondering what do those styles do, such as w-full, flex, py6, justify between, and so on, these are all Tailwind utility classes. And Tailwind is used to create elements such as this card right here really quickly just by adding those class names. That's the whole point, and that's why we're using it. If you're interested in what a specific class does, go to Tailwind, click Docs, and then simply use this search at the top right. We can search for w-full, and we can see that it sets the full width. That's it. Really simple. Don't overcomplicate things saying, oh, what is this full width? What is this py6? Simply go to Tailwind Docs and search for it. That's all that you have to do. And that's what I always teach on my JSMastery.pro courses. You need to be able to read docs on your own. That is the only way on how you're going to become a proficient and independent developer. I can only teach you so much. I can show you how to build beautiful websites like these, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to read through the docs on your own and to be able to come up with something new. With that said, let's continue. Now, inside of this nav, we want to render an image, a self-closing IMG tag that's going to have a source equal to logo. And there we go, WhoBank. Let's also give it an alt tag equal to WhoBank, and let's give it a class name equal to, that's going to be w dash in square brackets 124 pixels, like this. And we can also give it a height, so that's going to be h dash, and then inside of square brackets 32 pixels. There we go. So now we have a specific smaller size WhoBank logo. Now we want to have a UL, an unordered list, and that UL is going to have a class name equal to list-none. On small devices, we're going to make it flex. Usually, it's going to be hidden because this is only our mobile navbar. Below, later on, we're going to create our desktop navbar. Now, let's also add the justify-end, items-center, and flex-1. Inside of there, we want to map over our nav links. So we can open a dynamic block of code by using the curly braces and then say navlinks.map. We're going to get one nav link and an index, and we want to instantly return something. Remember, when you're instantly returning, you want to have just a parenthesis here and not a curly brace. We want to return a list item, And every list item has to have a key because we are inside of a map. So let's set the key to be equal to nav.id. Let's also give it a class name, and that class name is going to be dynamic. So we can do it like this and say font-poppins. And before we add any new class names, let's simply render what should be in there. And that is going to be an A tag that's going to have an href equal to dynamic string of, that's going to be hash or pound nav.id. So we want to go to that specific point when we click on that link. We want to close it, and in there we want to render the nav dot, and that's going to be nav.title. Now if we save this, we cannot see anything because the text right now is dark. We have to make it light. So let's add a couple more class names. Let's add a font-normal. Let's add a cursor-pointer. Now we might be able to see them. There we go. You can see that the cursor turns to a pointer. Let's give it a text dash, and then inside of square brackets, 16 pixels. And now we're going to do something different. We need to know which tag is currently active. And now we can simply give it a text dash white color. There we go. This works perfectly. Of course, we'll have to give it some margin. So let's say margin right is going to be 10. There we go. But now the client is going to have the margin right as well. And we don't want to have the margin on the last element. So we can open a new dynamic block and say if index is equal to navlinks.length minus 1. This means that it is the last element. Then we want to give it a margin right 0. Otherwise, we want to give it a margin right of 10, as we've done before. And now we can properly close this if I use the right sign right there. There we go. And we can remove the margin right from there. Perfect. So now we kind of lost it for a second there. Let's see, margin right 10. And we have to add a space right here to separate it from the text 16 pixel. And there we go. This is now looking like a modern navbar. This is great. Now, what happens if we go to a mobile view? Of course, we're making our applications mobile friendly. You can see that it completely disappears. So now we're going to create a new list of items only for mobile devices. Below our UL, so right here, we want to create a new div element. This div is going to have a class name. On small devices, hidden, usually flex, flex-1, justify-end, and items-center. Now inside of there, we want to render an image. This image is going to be a menu image where we can click it to expand the menu. So that's going to be a self-closing image tag with a source equal to. Now it's going to depend. Do we want to open or close the menu? And for that, we can create a new use state. So right here at the top, we can start typing use state and then use the arrow down to select the use state snippet. We can start typing immediately and we're going to call it toggle. Set toggle, move by using the tab key, and then at the start, that's going to be set to false. So at the start, it's toggled to false. Now, if the toggle is turned on, then we want to show a close icon. Otherwise, we want to show a menu icon. Let's save it. And there we go. We can see a beautiful menu icon right here. Now, let's also apply a couple of other properties to our image tag. For example, let's add an alt tag equal to menu. Let's give it a class name equal to w dash and then 28 pixels like so. Height is going to be 28 pixels as well. And then object dash contain. If we save this, there we go. That's going to look better. And this just sets the object fit to contain. There we go. This is looking good. Now, once we click that, we want to change the toggle. So we can say on click. We want to have a callback function and we want to set the toggle to be equal to. Now, this is not the right way to do it. In React, you should never update the state using the previous version of that same old state. If you want to change the state using the previous version of that same state, then you need to create a callback function that looks like this. So set toggle, and then you call it prev, and then you say not prev. This way, React makes sure that it keeps the state up to date. And now if you click right here, you can see that it actually changes. The only thing we have to do right now is actually open the mobile menu. So still inside of this div, but below this image, let's create a div that's going to serve as our menu. This div is going to have a class name. It's going to be dynamic, so we want to check right here if toggle is turned on. If it is, then it's going to be a flex container. If it is not turned on, then it is going to be hidden. There we go. Now we can add a couple more classes. So we're going to have a padding of 6, bg-black-gradient, position absolute, top-20, right-0, margin x-4, margin y-2, minimum dash width is going to be 140 pixels. Make sure to just do it like this, min dash w dash, and then 140, rounded dash XL, and then sidebar. Now, if we save this, and if you click on this icon right here, you can see a menu nicely animated. There we go. Of course, now we want to create a new UL inside of that. And that UL is going to be quite similar to this UL right here. So we can simply copy this entire UL and paste it below. There we go. And we can indent it properly. There we go. Let's expand this a bit. And now let's see what do we have to change. This time it's going to be list-none, but it's going to be flex usually, and we don't have to say on small devices no flex or hidden or something like that. And then everything else will almost remain the same. You can see now we have our list, but it looks like it is on desktop. We want to make it show in a column, so we can say flex-col. And there we go. We are almost there. Remember, we were messing with the margins before, so let's go down to the LI. We're going to stick with the font pop-ins, font normal, cursor pointer, text 16. But now, instead of margin right, we're going to do margin bottom. So let's do MB-4. And let's save that. And there we go. We have a beautiful menu that pops up, and we have all of the links right here. That is great. And now if we close this, we have a beautiful desktop and tablet and laptop menu as well. As always, we strive to create websites that are responsive on all devices. That is what web nowadays is. Most people nowadays visit all the websites through mobile. So we want to make sure that they are as responsive as possible. Again, I'll just have to mention the FilmPar application from the FilmPar course. There, we tried really hard to make it as responsive as possible on a lot of different devices. And I really mean a lot. As you can see, on mobile, it feels like a native mobile application. But now, as you expand it to something like a tablet, we have 2 movies per row. Now, if you expand it even more to a laptop, that's going to be 3. And as larger you go, the more movies you can see. And it is responsive on all devices. It's just something I wanted to show to you. Again, by watching this video, you get a special discount by clicking the link below. With that said, we can now get back to developing our application. The navbar is now completely done. We can close that file, go back to our app, and we are coming to the main star of the show. That is developing the hero section. So let's control-click it, and we are ready to start coding. To start coding our hero section, we can first collapse our browser to the right side of the window. And there we go. Now we can see what we're doing. Right inside of here, we don't even need a return statement because we're going to return our JSX instantly. So simply use parentheses inside of curly braces right here on line 3. Now, instead of rendering a div, we're going to render a section element. Inside of that section, we're going to give it an ID equal to home so we can scroll to it. We can also give it a class name equal to, and now this is going to be a dynamic class name. So it's going to look like this. First, let's import some styles. We can say import styles from /styles. We can also import the discount as well as the robot, and these are coming from /assets. Instead of styles, it looks like it's supposed to be style. There we go. So that's going to be all that we need for now. Now let's make this section a flex container. On medium devices, it's going to be flex-row, and usually it's going to be flex-colon. Let's also give it a styles.padding y. That's going to instantly add a bit more space. Now inside of there, we want to have a div. And just to show you what we're creating, it's going to be this section right here. On the left side, we're going to have some text, and on the right side, we're going to have this image right here. So let's start. This div is going to have a class name equal to, it's going to be a dynamic class name of flex-1, styles.flexStart, flex-call. On extra large devices, padding x0, on small devices, padding x16, and usually padding x6. This is to make sure that it looks good on all devices. Now inside of there, we're going to have just one more div, and this div is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-row, items-center, padding y, so py, and then that's going to be inside of square brackets 6 pixels. Padding x4, bg-discount-gradient, and rounded dash, that's going to be 10 pixels. And finally, mb-2 for margin bottom. Now inside of there, we're going to render this component right here. 20% discount for 1 month account. So let's start with that immediately. We first need this little icon right here. So let's do just that. Let's render an img tag. And that's going to be source is equal to discount. We can also give it an alt tag equal to discount. And let's give it a class name equal to. Now we can open it up right here and inspect it. You can see it is 32 pixels wide and 32 pixels high. So let's do just that. We can say w dash 32 pixels and h dash 32 pixels as well. Now if we save this, there we go. You should be able to see it. It's quite dark, but it is there. Now let's add 2 different spans. Span right here. And that span is going to have a class name equal to text-white. Inside of there, we can say 20%, as it is on this design right here, 20%. Then we have discount for, so after the span, let's do it right here, discount for. We can then add 1 empty space like this. Then below that, 1 month is also going to be in a span. So we can duplicate that and say 1 month. And then one more time outside of the span, we want to say account. There we go. So now if we save this, we can barely see the text in between, but that's because all of these spans and text elements should have been in a paragraph. So let's create a p tag. And now let's drag and drop all of these elements inside of that p tag. Of course, we need to give it some class names, such as class name is equal to. That's going to be a dynamic class name, styles, dot paragraph, and also ml-2 for margin left. And there we go. This is already looking just a bit better. But it seems that there are no spaces right here after 20%. So if we put this discount for on the same line, then it's going to apply the space. Same thing for the account. There we go. So this is now looking great. We're starting to create our great design. Now after that, now we're coming to the main part, which is the next generation payment method. So let's go outside of this div right there and just below it. There we want to create a new div, and this div is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-row, justify dash between, items-center, and w-full. Now inside of there, we want to render that big H1, the heading. That heading is going to say exactly as it says right here. So we can even copy that and paste it in there. The next payment method. And we also need to get that generation, which is in a different span element. So let's do step by step. First, the next. Then we want to add a break tag because we want to show something on a new line. There we go, break tag. And we can give that break tag a class name. We can say only show on small devices. So on small devices exist, and then usually it's going to be hidden. Now, after that, we want to add a space, as we did before. And in there, we want to have a span to render that generation. And to that span, we can give a class name of text-gradient. And let's say generation. We also need to provide a space after that. There we go. So now if we go back, you can see generation, but we can't really see anything else. Let's indent this properly. And as you can see, we didn't really add any styles to our H1. So let's do that right away. We can say class name is equal to flex-1, font-poppins, font-semi-bold, SS, that's going to be for stroke. And there we can say text dash, and we can do 72 pixels. Text dash, and then that's going to be 52 pixels. That's going to make it really big. And then we can give it a text dash white. There we go, the next generation payment method. This is looking beautiful. I've got to say, recently I've been using font poppins and it is just great. And we can also give it the SS colon leading dash, and then we can do something like 100 pixels like this. There we go. So this is just going to change the height between the words. And we can also do leading dash, and then that's going to be 75 pixels. Now below that, we are gonna need the get started component. That get started is essentially this button right here. And that button can be created as a separate component, as it does have quite a few styles to create this nice circle with the icon and the text. So below this H1, we can create a div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to SS and then flex. It's going to be hidden, and on medium devices, margin right 4, and usually margin right 0. Now inside of there, we can render that get started component as a self-closing tag. And now we can import it. So to import that get started, we can say import get started from /get started. And now if we go back, we should be able to, there we go, it is here, it's hiding. We of course have to implement these styles for that. So let's do it properly. Let's control click into the get started, and let's start implementing that cool circular button component. So to get started, we can of course import these styles from /style like this. And we can also import the arrow up coming from /assets. Now inside of there, we can again instantly return something. So it's gonna look like this. And that something is just going to be a div. But now that div is going to have a class name equal to, and we can go back to see what we're doing. So right now it is hidden. Class name is going to be a dynamic class name. So it's going to be styles.flexCenter. And then we're going to also give it a width of 140 pixels and also a height of 140 pixels. Now after that, we can make it rounded dash full and give it a BG-blue gradient. Now if we save that, we're going to have a beautiful gradient circle. Now what we can do is also give it a padding dash, and then let's do something like 2 pixels. That's going to just add some space inside of that circle for the text. And let's also make it a cursor dash pointer. So now it seems clickable. Now inside of there, we're going to have a couple more divs. The first inner div is going to also have a few class names, such as also dynamic, styles dot flex center, flex dash call, bg dash primary, w dash, and then that's going to be 100%, and also h dash 100%. We can also make it rounded dash full. Now, if we save that, you can notice that everything disappears, but we just have this padding that we left before, which is 2 pixels, and that serves as our border. Now, inside of this div, we're going to have one more div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to, again, it's going to be dynamic, so styles.flexStart, and also flex-row. Finally, inside of that div, we're going to have a p tag, and that p tag is going to have a span tag inside of it, and inside of that span tag, we can say get. So we are trying to achieve this, get started. So we first have the span. Let's style it a bit. We can give this p a class name equal to font-poppins, font-medium, text-18 pixels, leading-23 pixels. It's still going to be hidden because we have to give this span a class name of text-gradient. There we go. So now we can see get right there. But we're not going to stop there. Below this span element, we can render a self-closing image tag with a source equal to arrow up. There we go. We can also give it a class name equal to w-23 pixels, and also h dash, that's going to be the same 23 pixels. We can also give it object dash contain. There we go. So now we also want to give it an alt tag of something like arrow, and we're missing this last started word. So let's add that right below. We can copy this entire p tag and just paste it below this div right here. So that's going to be here. We won't need the image though, so we can remove the image. And now we can say started right there. Now you might be able to notice that our arrow is not going on the right side of the get as it should be. So let's check it out. We have this div right there that says styles.flexStart, and then we are adding the flex row in there. Now, inside of this p tag, we have a span, but the image should go outside of that p tag so that it actually appears nicely in a row. And there we go. This is already looking so much better. It's actually looking exactly as it does on the design. We can maybe give this p just a bit of margin right, something like 2, and there we go. I think we hit the design perfectly. Great. So now we have this get started as well. We can close the get started component and we can go back to our hero because we're not yet done with the hero section. Now we have to do this text right there. Then we have to do all of these numbers right there. And then finally, this cool robotic arm with the card payments. So let's do that right away. We're going to go down 2 divs. So this is 1, 2 below the get started. And there we can create another h1. This h1 is going to be quite similar to the first one. So let's copy all of the class names from the first one. And let's give them to this h1. Now, we won't be needing the flex one. Font poppins is going to stay. Font semi-bold is going to stay. The text is going to be a bit smaller, something like 68 here, and then 52 there. It's going to be text white, and then leading is going to be the same. We just want to add the w-full because we need this to go full width. Now, inside of there, we can say payment method. There we go. And that is appearing right here. And it seems that I didn't need this payment method right here because we did it below the get started. Yep, that's my bad. So if we were to do this payment right there, then we couldn't fit the get started button in the middle. So what we have to do is remove this payment right here above the get started. So let's do that right now. There we go. So now we have nicely the next generation payment method. exactly as it is on the design. Great. So now below this H1, we want to have a P tag. So let's create a P tag. That P tag is going to copy the text that we have on the design. So you can double click it and paste it. Okay, that's good. And finally, let's give it some class names to actually make it visible. Our class name is going to be dynamic styles.paragraph. Of course, we have to put it inside of the $ and curly braces. And then max dash W dash and then 470 pixels. And also margin top dash 5. There we go. So now we're getting a lot closer. Now let's do the right side, which is going to be this robotic arm, but we also have to implement these gradients. I hope you can see those circles right there and splashes of light that are coming behind the image. So let's do them first. Now we have this H1 and we have this P tag, and all of them should be in this div right there. Now we can go one div below and create a new div. That's going to be the div for the right side of our screen. Now inside of there, we're going to render our image. So immediately we can render a self-closing image tag that's going to have the source equal to robot. Let's save it. It automatically appears right there. Let's give it an alt tag equal to billing. And let's add a class name equal to W-100% and also H-100% inside of square brackets. Let's also give it a relative position and Z index of 5 to make it appear above our gradients once we add them. There we go, looking good. But you can see that we are missing something. It's if we expand this window right here, it's going to show on the right side, but still we're missing those gradients, which really make it pop. So let's do just that. Let's add the gradients. We can do that by adding a series of self-closing divs. Every one of those divs is going to have a class name, and it's going to be positioned absolutely. We can set the Z index of the first one to 0, and we can give it a width of 40%. We can also give it a height of 35%. And then we can say top 0. So this is going to appear from the start of the page. And then finally, we can give it a class of pink __ gradient. Now, if we save this, you can see this cool pink gradient coming from the top. And if we go to our design, you can essentially select this gradient and you can copy its styles, which are listed right there. In this case, I already provided them for you in the styles. So if we search for the pink gradient, there we go. You can see it inside of the index.css. It is a linear gradient that is simply copied from here. Great. So now let's add other gradients as well to fill this image up. We can go back and we can copy this 2 times. Now for the second one, we're going to set the Z index to 1. We're going to give it an 80% of width, and we're going to also give it an 80% of height. Let's make it rounded because this is going to be circular, so rounded dash full. And then we won't be needing top 0, but rather bottom is going to be 40. And then finally, instead of pink gradient, it's going to be white __ gradient. There we go. So this is a really strong one. And then finally, we can complete it with the last gradient, which is going to have a Z index of 0, W-50, H-50, and then right-20 to position it, also bottom-20, and then blue __ gradient. We don't need the pink right there. There we go. We're combining a couple of different gradients. And before we expand it to fully see it, let's just do one thing that's going to make a difference on mobile devices. Right now, you can notice that the Get Started is coming on the right side right here. But if we switch it to iPhone 12, the Get Started disappears because we want to show it below. That makes more sense from a design standpoint. So let's add that last div. And that's going to be below these divs with gradients. So we want to create a new div. That div is going to have a class name. It's going to be dynamic of SS hidden. So usually we want it hidden, but then it's going to be visible on mobile devices. So flex center. And there we want to render the same component we created before, that is the get started component. Now on mobile devices, we have this beautiful get started button below the robot arm. And then if we switch to desktop, let's expand it to see it in its full glory. And there we go. Now it looks like we definitely messed something up with the gradients. They are way too powerful. Looking at the design, they should be more subtle, like this. And on our finished site, you can see that they're much more subtle. So what we can do is look into the changes and make sure that our gradients are as they should be. So we can scroll up, we have this div right there, and it seems to me we just missed adding the styles to this div. So let's add a class name, let's make it dynamic, and let's say flex-1. Let's add it a flex so they appear in a row. Let's add the styles.flex center. And also, we can give it on medium devices, margin Y 0, usually margin Y 10, and it's going to have a position of relative. Now, these gradients are going to appear only behind the robot arm, and this is looking much better. Great. This hero section is looking like it belongs to a really modern and clean web application. We have this nice get started button, and if you want an extra challenge, you can kind of animate this button a bit and do something once the user hovers over it. But even without that, this is a beautiful hero section. The next section on our list is going to be this line right here, where we have different aspects of our website, or should I say our company. We have 3,800 active users, 2,300 plus trusted by company, and 230 million in transactions. Let's do that first, and then we're moving to these kind of repetitive sections that I'm going to show you how to make incredibly reusable. Great. So let's move to this line first. We can do that by collapsing our browser. We can close our hero and go back to the app. And then just by following the structure, we're moving to the stats. The stats are that line that covers all of the important stats. To start creating our stats, we can first import the stats array coming from /constants. And we can also import the styles coming from /style. Now, if you're wondering what these stats are, we can simply control click them, and you'll be able to see that it is an array with 3 different objects, and each object has a title and a value. If we compare this with the design, you can see that every object represents one key and value pair, the number alongside a description explaining what that number does. So I simply took those values and explanations, put them inside of an array, and now we're going to map through them. So we can first remove this return statement, as we'll be returning our JSX immediately. So this is going to provide us with a cleaner look. And now inside of the stats, we're going to turn this div into a section, and we're going to give it a class name. That class name is going to be dynamic, so styles.flexCenter. We can also give it a flex-row, flex-wrap. On small devices, margin bottom 20, usually margin bottom 6. There we go. So now you're not going to see any change just yet, but now let's actually map over those stats. So that's going to be stats.map. We get each individual stat, and then we want to instantly return something for each stat. That something is going to be a div, and that div is going to have a key equal to stat.id, and it's going to have a class name. The class name we can do later, because the most important thing is that we can actually see the data. So first, we're going to have an h4 element right there, and that h4 is going to render the stat.value. That is going to be the number right here. And then we, of course, need the stat.title as well. So below the h4, we can render the p tag that's going to render the stat.title. And again, these are just coming from this stats array. Now that we have those, they are indeed here, but we cannot really see them. So let's apply some styles. Most of the styles are going to be quite similar, but they'll be different in sizes. First, we can add the styles for the H4. So let's say class name is equal to font-poppins, font-semi-bold. On extra small devices, text-40 pixels. Usually, text-30 pixels. On extra small, we can set the leading to be 53 pixels, like this. And then usually, the leading can be set to something like 43 pixels. And text-white. So now you can see these numbers right there. But of course, we have to style the p tags as well. So let's copy all of the class names from the H4 and let's add them to the p tag. But we're going to modify just a couple of things. Instead of font semi-bold, it's going to be font normal. Instead of 40 pixels, it's going to be 20 for the extra small text. Usually, it's going to be 15. When it comes to leading, it's going to be 26 right here for the extra small, and then usually it's going to be 21. And instead of text white, we're going to say text-gradient. It's going to be uppercase, and it's going to have a margin left of 3. Now, if we save that, you can see this is already looking much better, almost as it does on the design. But of course, we have to style the div, so we can go back to our div. And now that we can actually see our elements, we can give it a class name of, that's going to be dynamic. Let's do flex-1. That's immediately going to show them one by one. We can also give it a flex property, justify-start, items-center, flex-row, and then margin-3 or M-3. And as you can see, this really made our homepage pop. Now we have the entire first view. Once the user comes on the screen, they can see this beautiful image alongside the Get Started button, and they can see all the stats immediately above the fold once they first join. So this is looking great. And believe it or not, with that, we're completely done with our stats. We can go back to the app and focus on the business part next. If you look at the design, the business part is going to be this subsection right here. It's going to have some text on the left side, and then it's going to have some cards on the right side. So let's focus on developing that right away. To start coding out our business section, we are going to import a couple of things. So let's start by importing the features coming from, that's going to be /constants. We can also import the styles, but also comma layout. And that's going to be coming from /style. And we can also import the button component, which is coming from, that's going to be simply /button. Now let's explore what we're importing here. We can control click into features, and you can see the features are similar to our stats. It's going to be an array of different cards. So we have feature 1, which is going to be rewards, and in there we have an icon, we have a title, and content. You always need to visualize how something on the screen is going to look like. What properties is it going to have? We can clearly see that in here we have a title, we have content, and we have an icon, and then everything else is the same. In React, you have to think in terms of reusability, how you can reuse specific components. Now let's go back to business, no pun intended there, and we can explore what this layout is. So if we control click the layout, you can see the layout is simply containing some other styles for the section, section reverse, section info, and so on. And if we look at the layout right here, you can notice that it's simply some additional class names. Instead of writing flex, md flex row, flex column, styles padding y, we can simply say section and save us a lot of time. So let's go back and let's start implementing our business. First, we can turn this into a section, and we're going to give an ID to that section. That's going to be features. Let's also give it a class name equal to layout.section. There we go. Now, inside of that section, we're going to have a div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to layout.sectionInfo. You can see how much simpler this is. We don't have to write a lot of class since we prepared all of our class names right here. And then we can also do an H2. Keep in mind, right now we're creating this part right here. And that H2 is going to say exactly as it does right here. So we can copy the entire text and we can add a break tag before wheel, as you can see right here. So let's say break tag. And to that break tag, we can apply a class name equal to on small devices block, which means show it, usually hide it, because we only want to do this on smaller devices. Now, what we can do is save this and go back, and you can notice that we cannot see anything. That's because we haven't provided the H2 classes. So right here, let's say class name is equal to styles.heading2. And there we go. We immediately provide those styles. Now let's do the p tag as well. So just below, we can have a p tag. And from the design, we can copy what this text right here says. It looks like it is written in a different font, which I don't have right here. So it's not allowing me to copy. So I'm simply going to change it to some that potentially all of us have. So if I replace it right here, this should be good. And now we can copy it. There we go. And we can change the class name to class name is equal to, it's going to be dynamic, styles.paragraph, and let's save that. If we go back, you can notice that this text expands quite a bit right here. Usually for something to be readable, it needs to show in blocks like these. The text must not have a lot of width. So what we can do is we can apply a new class name, max-w-470 pixels. If we save this, this is going to be much more readable now. And let's also divide it from the text by giving it a margin top of 5. There we go. You do the business, we'll handle the money, as they say. Yes, this website is really nicely done. It has some nice text elements, some nice stats, nice images. This is how you should be creating your websites for clients. And while we're on the topic of landing clients and landing job opportunities, our next cohort of the JSM Masterclass experience is starting really soon. So if you go to jsmastery.pro, click on the Masterclass experience, you can read more about it, but essentially we're going to help you to land your next job in 3 to 6 months' time. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely check it out. But with that said, let's go back to this beautiful bank application. Now we have to add a button right here, and then after the button, we're going to show these cards on the right side, and I'm going to show you how to make them completely reusable. But let's take it step by step. Below this p tag, we can render a self-closing button tag. That button for now is going to be just an empty button component. Let's provide a prop to it called styles, and let's give it a style of empty 10, margin top 10. Because we want to divide it a bit from this element right there. Now we can control click into it and we can create a new generic button component. So again, we're making this as reusable as possible. To this button, we've passed a prop called styles, so we can get that immediately. And right here, we can simply render a button component. That button is going to have a type is equal to button, as buttons usually do. We can give it a class name, which is going to be dynamic, padding Y4, padding X6, and we can also immediately give it a BG-blue-gradient. Now, if we save this, there we go, we have an empty button. We can add a text in between, get started. There we go, already looking more like a button. Let's also give it a font-poppins. Let's give it a font-medium. Let's also give it a text-18 pixels to really make it pop. Let's give it a text-primary, outline-none. And we can also render all the styles coming from our props. There we go. So now we have our button done as well. Let's get back to business. And we can create the next part of our business section, which is going to be the feature cards. So first of all, let's create a new div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to, that's going to be a dynamic string of layout.section img and also flex-column, because we want to show these in a column. inside of here, we can map through our features. So we can say features.map. We get one individual feature, and we can also get the index of each card. There we go. So now what do we want to render for each card? Well, let's make our life easier and let's create a reusable feature card component. Since this feature card will only be used inside of this file, let's simply create it above, right here, above our business component. So we can say const feature card is equal to a regular arrow function component with an instant return. Inside of there, we can render a div. And for now, let's simply try to pass all of the props. So which props will we need? Well, let's simply provide a key first of all, since we're mapping over it, which is going to be equal to feature.id. And then let's spread all of the feature properties like this. That way, it's going to contain all of the features that are inside of our feature object. And we can also give it an index is equal to index. Great. Now, if we look into our feature, we can know that we have an icon, title, content, and the ID. So let's destructure those from props. That's going to be icon, title, content, and the index. There we go. Let's immediately try showing the icon, just so we know that something works. So we're going to have a div inside of this div. And there we can render a self-closing image tag that's going to have the source equal to icon. Alt can say something like icon as well. And if we save this, you can see 3 different icons, which means that we created a reusable component that we're now mapping over. And for now, it's showing just different icons. But soon enough, we're going to add a text as well. Let's also give a class name to these icons. So that's going to be W dash. Let's do 50%. H dash, also 50%. And let's also give it object dash contain. There we go. Now let's style everything else as well. First of all, we have to add class names to our card div. Remember, we're creating this part right there. Now, what we can do is we can give it a class name. It's going to be dynamic, so like this, flex, flex-row, padding-6, rounded-20 pixels. You can see it is just a bit rounded around the corners. Now, we also want to give it some margin bottom to divide this card from this one and this one from this one. But if it is the last card, then we don't want to provide it a margin bottom. So what we can do is say index is not equal to features.length -1. So if it is not the last one, then give it a margin bottom of 6. Usually give it a margin bottom of, that's going to be 0, margin bottom 0. There we go. And we of course have to close it right there. Let's see. Yep, I shouldn't have closed it there. I should have closed it right here. There we go. Let's just properly close this and we should be good to go. That's good. And let's provide it one last class name, which is going to be feature-card. Now, if we go back, you can see that if we hover over it, it seems like a card. It is like a box that has an icon in there, but let's style it just a bit more. This div containing the icon is going to have the class name equal to, and let's make it dynamic. That's going to be W-64 pixels, like this. It's also going to have an H-64 pixels. If we save this, okay, now we can see those icons. Also rounded-full. Let's also give it a styles.flex center and bg-dim blue. There we go. So now we have a circle around the icon and we have something that looks more like different cards. But of course, once we add a title and the text, it's going to look more like this. So let's add that immediately. Below this div that contains the image, we're going to create another div. This div is going to have a class name equal to flex-1, flex, flex-col, and margin left 3. Inside of there, we want to render an H4, and inside of there, we want to render the title. We want to repeat this process for the P tag as well, and there we want to render the content. And as always, it's not going to be visible immediately, but if we hover, we can see that something is there. So let's apply class names to our H4. That's going to be font-poppins, font-semi-bold, text-white, text-18 pixels, leading-23. And let me save it before adding leading so you can see what that does. There. So now leading dash, let's do 23 pixels. It just adds a bit more space. And then finally margin bottom 1. There we go. And now let's copy that same class name. Let's add it to our p tag. And let's change just a few things. That's going to be changing the font from semi-bold to normal. We can also change the text color to dim white, like this. And change the text size to 16 pixels. Leading can be something like 24. And there we go. Now we have these cards looking exactly as they do on the design. And believe it or not, with that, we're done with the business section. So now if we expand this, take a look at this. We have a beautiful hero section, and then we have a phenomenal feature section. So we have a list of features and benefits that this platform provides. Every single website should have this. Great. And another call to action right there. The next section on our list is going to be this one, which is quite similar. We have the text and then the text below, 2 different buttons, and then the images this time are on the left side, opposed to having the cards on the right side. Just to break that same structure, you can see we have left, right, left, and then left, right one more time. Perfect. So let's dive into our next section. Let's go back right here, expand our Visual Studio Code. And if we go back to our app, you can see that the billing is going to be the next section. And that is exactly this part right here, billing. There we go. So let's implement the billing next. Of course, we're going to start with the images since they are on the left side. To start with the billing, we're of course going to import a couple of assets, and those are going to be Apple, Bill, and Google. And these are coming from /assets. We're also going to get our styles as well as the layout coming from /style. Now immediately in there, we can instantly return our JSX. So let's simply structure this properly. And now we can turn this div into a section. This section is going to have an ID because we can scroll to it, and let's call it product. And let's give it a class name is equal to, that's going to be layout.section reverse. So this is the part where I told you we're making something dynamic. We have a section reverse. If we look into it, it's the same thing, but we reverse the column. So that means that we're showing things from left to right, or on mobile, that means that we're showing the text first. That is the key part right there. I'm going to show you what I mean really quickly once we develop this section. And let's go back now, and let's add something inside of that section. That's going to be a div, and that div is going to have a class name of equal to layout.sectionImageReverse. Inside of there, we want to render our image. So this image is going to be a self-closing image tag with a source of bill. Alt is going to be billing, and we can give it a class name equal to, let's do something like W-100%, H- that's going to be 100%, and let's do relative, as well as a Z index of 5. Now, if we close this and save it, if we scroll down, you can see we have our beautiful image right here. But there is something you might have not noticed. If we look at the design again, there is this slight little grayish gradient happening right here. So let's add that gradient as well. It really makes the image pop, and it makes it appear like these 3D elements are flowing on top of the screen. Right now, it is just an image on the black background. So to add those gradients, we can add 2 self-closing divs, just like this. Let's give the first one a class name equal to absolute, z-3 minus left and then dash 1/2 like this. Also top 0 to appear on the top, w-50%, h-50% like this, and then rounded dash full and also white underscore underscore gradient. Now, if we save this, we already can see it appear just slightly, but it is there. Now we can copy this entire div, paste it below, and change just a couple of things. We can add a z-index of 0 right here. We can keep this left. Instead of top, let's add a bottom of 0. W and height can remain the same. Rounded full, but instead of white gradient, it's going to be pink gradient. So let's change this white into pink. There we go. So now they really nicely kind of show together, and this is looking great. Now let's expand it to take a look. And of course, the image is way too big. So we're going to solve this really soon. Let's collapse it. And let's add our actual text, which should appear on the right side. It's going to be fairly easy. We've already created headings like these and content element like this one. So let's create a new div below this one. That div is going to have a class name equal to layout.section.info, and we're going to have an h2. That h2 is going to say this, easily control your billing. You can copy that. And we of course have to add that break tag before billing. So let's say br class name is equal to on small block, usually hidden like this. And of course, we have to give it a class name to be able to see it. So let's say class name is equal to styles.heading2. And there we go. Here it is. And below that, we can add a p tag. That p tag is going to render this text right there. And what we can do is go back. We can also give it a class name. So that's going to be a class name of template string styles.paragraph, also max-w-470 pixels, and also margin top 5. And there we go. Now, when using these layouts, as I mentioned before, on the column structure, when we are on tablet or mobile devices, as you can see, the text is still showing on top of this image, exactly as we wanted that. And that's because we use the section reverse. If we go into it and check it out, you can see that we have this flex column reverse. So what that does is usually have it in a row like this. Show this on the left side, show this on the right side. But on mobile devices, when we go into a column, you can see right here, the text shows on top and then the image that explains it. That's exactly how it should be. Great. So that's just another small tip. On mobile devices, you're going to often find yourself using a column reverse. Great. With that said, we're just missing those two buttons. So let's add them right away. Going back to our billing, we can go below this p tag, but still inside of this div. We can create another div. That div is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-row, flex-wrap. On small devices, margin top 10, usually margin top 6. And there we can render a image for now. Of course, you can make that image clickable. Let's give it a source equal to Apple. Alt is going to be Google_Play. And a class name can be something like W-128 pixels. And again, this is simply being copied from right here. If you click inspect, you should be able to see the exact width and height. Perfect. Now going back, we can also give it a height of 42 pixels. There we go. And we can also give it an object dash contain, margin right 5, and then cursor dash pointer. If we save this, you can see our button right here. This is the Apple button. So instead of Google Play, let's say Apple Store. Great. And now we can duplicate this image, change this to Google, remove this margin right because this is the second element, and we can show the Google. And with that, believe it or not, we created our billing section and it is looking great. Now this actually seems like a real website, so we can scroll through it. We have the features section and we have the billing section as well. Essentially, this is a call to action section where people can download their app on Google Play or App Store. Perfect. This is looking great. The next section on our list is going to be this one, which again is, as you can see, quite similar to the first one. We have some text on the left, we have a button, and we have these cards right here. So let's get started with that right away by collapsing our browser view and then going back to the app and going into the card deal. To start coding our card deal section, which is this one right here, we can again import a few things. We can import the card coming from /assets. We can also import the styles. That's going to be a default import, as well as the layout coming from /style. And we can import the button component coming from /button. Now we have everything we need. Let's turn this into an immediate return statement. And let's turn this div into a section. Now this section is going to have a class name equal to layout.section. It's also going to have a div that's going to have a class name equal to layout.sectionInfo. And it's also going to have an h2 there. That h2 is going to render this piece of text, which we can copy. Don't forget, we have to add that break tag. So that's going to be after deal. Let's add a break tag. It's going to have a class name equal to, on small devices, block, and then usually hidden, like this. Now, what we can do is also render the p tag below it. That p tag is going to render this text. And we can give some styles to the h2. That's going to be class name is equal to styles.heading2. If we go back, we can already see it. And we can also give some class names to our p tag. So that's going to be equal to a dynamic template string of styles.paragraph. We can also give it a max-w-480 pixels, as we have done already so far. And we can give it also a margin top 5. There we go. And now we already have a button component created, remember from before, so we can simply call it and provide a styles is equal to margin top 10. But in this case, it seems huge, and that's because it should have been just below the p tag, still inside of this div element. So now if we save this, it's looking better. Now it seems to me that this button right here has just a slight border radius, which we can simply check by looking at the inspect tab right here. And it does have a border radius of 10 pixels. So if we go to this button, we can check, do we have that border radius right there? Nope, it's not there. So you can either do a border radius, or Tailwind has a built-in rounded property. So we can say rounded -10 pixels. If we now go back and save it, there we go. This is more like it. Perfect. And now we have to add that image on the right side, which is going to be for the card. What we can do is go back to the card deal, and we can create a new div just below this one. This div is going to have a class name is equal to layout.sectionIMG. There we can render an IMG tag with a source is equal to card, and alt is going to be something like card, and class name is going to be something like W-100%, as well as H-100%. I think you can start noticing the pattern. Now, if we go back, we have our beautiful image right there. And if we want to look at this in its full glory, let's expand it. This is a beautiful website. In this case, we don't need to have a gradient because we have this circular image behind our elements. So that makes them pop, just to provide some diversity. But this is looking phenomenal, if I may say so myself. Now we're going to move to the next section, which is going to be a bit different. It's going to be a testimonial section. So in this case, we're going to have a heading here, content element here, and then some cards. As you can see, we're going to reuse some similar things as we have with these cards right there. So in React, always try to reuse different elements. And notice that there aren't a lot of different colors and fonts and text sizes. It's always the same. Same headings, same content elements, and then similar colors for the buttons and other accents. You always have to stay consistent with your design. So with that said, let's go back. Let's close our card deal and let's open our testimonial section because that is going to be our next job. To start implementing the testimonials, we can of course start with a few imports. We can import the feedback coming from ... constants. We can also import the styles coming from ... styles. And we can also import a feedback card component coming from ... feedback card. This is going to be a component that we are yet to create. And again, I misspelled the styles. It's going to be coming from ... style right here. Now, before we start creating the layout, let's look what this feedback is. Again, it is a simple array with a couple of objects, in this case, just 3, that have name, title, and then the image. That is it. So let's use it right here in our JSX. We can turn this into an instant return. That way we have one less level of indentation, so it's easier to look at it. And we can turn this into a section. We can give that section an ID equal to clients, and we can give it a class name equal to styles.padding y, styles.flexCenter, flex-col, and relative. Now inside of there, we want to have one div, which is going to be a gradient. But for now, we can leave that empty as we'll be able to add that gradient later on. Now, going further, we can kind of add a comment and say to do for this thing right here. Below this div that is a gradient, we can render another div. This div is going to be used to contain this title in this context right here. So what we can do is we can give it a class name equal to w-full flex justify between items-center, on medium devices flex-row, usually flex-column, on small devices margin bottom 16, usually margin bottom 6, relative, and z index of 1. That way it goes over the gradient. Now let's add something in there. We'll have to take this title. So let's add an h1. We can paste the text. We can add a break tag again after the R word. So we can write here, add a break tag with a class name equal to, on small devices, that's going to be block. Usually it's going to be hidden. And we can also apply a class name to this h1. That's going to be class name is equal to styles.heading2. Perfect. Now if we go back, we can already see that. And below that h1, we can create a div. That div is going to have a class name equal to w-full. On medium devices, margin top 0, and usually margin top 6. Inside of there, we can render our p tag. That p tag is going to say this text right here, which we can copy and paste. And now we can give it some class names. So class name is equal to, that's going to be a dynamic string of styles.paragraph, text-left, max-w-450 pixels. And there we go. We can see it right here. Now, of course, below that, we want to map over all of our feedback cards. So let's create this card next. We can do that below this div and also below this div. So let's create one div that's going to contain all the cards. It's going to have a class name equal to, that's going to be flex, flex-wrap. On small devices, justify-start, usually justify-center, w-full, feedback-container, relative, and also z index of 1. There we go. Now, inside of there, we can actually map over our cards. So we can say feedback.map, we get each individual feedback item, or in this case, we can call it a card. Now we want to instantly return something, and we're going to return that feedback card component. It is a self-closing component that's going to have a key equal to card.id, and there we can spread the properties of a card. And we already know what those are. So if we check the feedback, that's going to be content, name, title, and then the image. So now we can control click to go into that card, and we can immediately accept those props. So right here, we can get the content, the name, the title, and the image. We can instantly return something. There we go. And now let's create the look and feel of that card. That's going to be a div that's going to have a class name equal to flex, justify-between, flex-column, padding x is 10, padding y is 12, rounded, dash 20 pixels, max dash width of 370 pixels, on medium devices, margin right 10, on small devices, margin right 5, usually margin right 0, margin y 5, and then feedback card. And I know there's a lot of styles, but if you go to the design and click on this card, you can see that we're going to get most of those properties right here, such as the border radius, colors, and so on. Great. So now going back, let's add the content inside of there. First of all, we need to add the image. That image is going to have a source, and we have to import that source. So we can say import quotes from ... assets. And now we can render the quotes image. There we go. We have 3 quotes. We can also give it an alt tag equal to double_quotes. And we can give it a class name equal to w-42 pixels, h- that's going to be something like 27 pixels, and object-contain. Again, all of that is coming from Figma. Now, below that, we want to render a p tag that's going to render the content that we're passing through props. Right now, it's hard to see it, so let's add a class name equal to font-poppins, font-normal, text-18 pixels, leading-32 pixels, text-white, and margin y of 10. And there we go. We have those 3 beautiful cards right there. Now, we also have to add something else, and that is going to be this image as well as the name and the title of that person. So below our p tag, we can add a div for that container. That div is going to have a class name equal to flex and flex-row because the image and the text is going to appear in a row. We first want to render the image. So we can say img, source, img, coming from props. Alt is going to be the name of that person. And then the class name can be w-48 pixels, h-48 pixels, and rounded-full to make it into a circle. Now, if we go back, we have those beautiful images right there. Now, let's create a div to contain the name and the title right below the image. That div is going to have a class name equal to flex, flex-column, and margin left 4. The column is for these text elements to appear one below another, and margin left is to divide it from this image. Now we can have an h4 in there, and h4 is going to render the name, and right below we can render the title. But this is going to be in a p tag. When it comes to the class names, we can copy the class names from the initial p tag, paste them onto the h4, and it's going to be font Poppins. It's going to be semi-bold this time. Text is going to be 20 pixels. Leading is going to be 32. Text dash white, and we don't need the margin Y. So if we go back, you can see that's looking good. Now we just have to copy the same class names to the p tag. It will be font Poppins, font normal. Text is going to be 16 though. Leading is going to be 24. Text is going to be dim white, and that is going to be it. We don't need the margin. And there we go. Now, if we go back from the feedback card, we're properly mapping over it. And finally, we're just missing this gradient inside of our testimonials. So before we check it out in its full glory, let's implement that gradient. That's going to be class name is equal to absolute, so we can position it properly. Z index of 0, so it appears behind the content. W-60% for width. H-60% for height. Minus right-50%. And then rounded-full to make it a circle. And then blue __ gradient. And there we go. You can see that circle right here on the right side. Now, if we expand this, you can see how it wraps. So now we can see 2 here and then 1 there. And we can expand it. And we have exactly what we wanted to achieve. Look at this. Compare it with this. And we can kind of hover to highlight one of the testimonials. This is looking great. Also notice how these gradients nicely transition from the top, then they move right here. You can see them on the left side, and they keep moving now to the right side there. Everything is looking perfect. Now the next section on our list are going to be these companies right here. Airbnb, Binance, Coinbase, and Dropbox. These are the companies that this company has worked with. So let's collapse this. Let's scroll down. And let's close our testimonials and let's move to our clients. These clients are going to be incredibly simple. We simply have to map over the images. So let's do it right away. We can import the clients coming from /constants. And we can also import the styles coming from /style. This is going to be a section of its own. And we also can instantly return this right here. Now, this section is going to have a class name. It's going to be dynamic of styles.flexCenter and also margin Y 4 to divide it from the top part and bottom part as well. Then we want to have a div. This div is going to have a class name equal to. That's going to be styles.flexCenter as well, and flex-wrap and W-full. Inside of there, we want to map over our clients. And just to show you what clients are, it's going to be just a list of 4 different logos. So we can say clients.map. We get one individual client, and we instantly want to return a div. That div is going to have a key equal to client.id. Let's fix that. And inside of there, we want to render an image. So an image is going to have a source equal to client.logo. It's going to have an alt tag equal to client. And it's going to have a class name equal to, on small devices, width is 192 pixels. Usually the width is 100 pixels. And it's going to be object-contain. Now, if we save this and scroll down, you can see all of the images right here, but they're kind of on top of each other. So let's add some class names to this div as well. That's going to be class name, dynamic of flex-1. There we go. We can also give it a styles.flexCenter. Let's give it on small devices, min-w-192 pixels. And usually min-w-120 pixels. There we go. So now they nicely show, they wrap, and if we expand this, this is looking beautiful. Again, an extra task for you if you want to play with it a bit. Make it so that the color of the logo kind of glows up or goes to pure white once you hover over it. That would be a little task for you to play with. Great. So now we are done with the client section and we are ready to move to final stages of our website. We have a final call to action. If people haven't clicked on Get Started Now a couple of times now, maybe they will once we are done with the page. So let's implement this part and then we're going to move to the footer. So to do that, we can collapse this browser right here and we can close our clients and open up our CTA. Let's start with our call to action section by first importing the styles coming from /style. And we can also import the button coming from, that's going to be /button. That is the same button we have created before. Now let's turn this into an immediate return like this. There we go. And we can turn this div into a section. Now inside of that section, we're going to have one more div. And then inside of that div, we're going to have an h2. That h2 is going to say, let's try our service now. And then below that h2, we're going to have a p tag. And that p tag is going to say whatever it says right here on the design. Let's copy that as well. And finally, below the div containing the h2 and the p tag, we can have one more div. And then that div is going to contain the self-closing button component. So now if we go back, you might think that we're going to have something and we just have the button. So we cannot see the text elements yet. And that is because we haven't provided the class names. So let's add a class name to our section. That's going to be equal to a dynamic template string of styles.flexCenter. Another one of styles.marginY, and another one that's going to be styles.padding. I felt like DJ Khaled by saying another one. So let's go further. We have 3 of these classes, and now we can proceed with, on small devices, flex row, usually flex column, bg-black-gradient-2, and then rounded -20 pixels, and finally box shadow. So now if we save this, we're going to get this beautiful rectangle, which has this nice grayish color with the button and the text. But now let's apply some styling to this div inside of it. We can give it a class name equal to flex-1, also flex, and flex-call. Now we can style this h2 by giving it a class name equal to styles.heading2. There we go, that's much better. And we can style the p tag by giving it a class name equal to styles.paragraph, and also max-w-470 pixels and margin top 5. There we go. We can also style the button just a bit, so let's give it a class name equal to styles.flexCenter. On small devices, margin left is going to be 10. Usually, margin left is going to be 0. On small devices, margin top is going to be 0. And usually, margin top is going to be 10. Now, if we save this, you can see that we have some margin left there. And if we expand this, you can notice it nicely scales. And we get to our full desktop view. Let's try our service now. So this is looking great. The last thing on our list is to implement this great looking footer. So to start with that, we can collapse this. We can go back to our app, jump into our footer, and let's dive right in. Let's start by importing the styles coming from /style. Let's import the logo coming from /assets. And let's import the footer links as well as the social media coming from /constants. Let me quickly show you what the footer links look like. So if we go here, you can notice that it is actually an array that has this big object that has the useful links. And then useful links contain multiple links, such as content, how it works, create, and so on. And then we also have the community links. So if we look into the design, you'll see that we actually have a series of couple of different links. Useful links, community, partner, and that's going to be it. So based on that, we created this nice structure where we have the title and then the actual array of links. So with that said, we can go back and now we can start creating that footer. Let's turn this into an immediate return arrow function. There we go. And now let's turn this into a section. Inside of this footer, we're going to have a div. But before we add anything to that div, let's form the styles of our section. So let's go back here and let's give it a class name equal to, that's going to be styles.flexCenter and styles.padding y. We can also give it a flex-call. This div is also going to have a class name equal to, that's going to be styles.flexStart. On medium devices, flex-row, usually flex-colon, margin bottom 8, so that's going to be MB8, and then W-full. Great. With that, now let's check it out. We can only see some dark space there, but now let's add an inner div that is going to contain our image. So let's create a div. That div is going to have the image inside of it. So let's create a self-closing image tag. It's going to have a source equal to logo. If we save this, we can see a huge logo right here. Let's add an alt tag equal to whobank. And let's add a class name equal to W-266 pixels and H- that's going to be 72 pixels. Let's also add the object contain. There we go. So this is already looking much better. But of course, we have to add the class names to this div as well. So let's say class name is equal to flex-1, flex-column, justify-start, and margin right 10. There we go. And now below this image, we can add a p tag. That p tag is going to say something like a new way to make the payments easy, reliable, and secure. We can give that p tag our usual class name. That's going to be equal to styles.paragraph and margin top 4. And let's also do max-w-310 pixels. There we go. So this is already looking much better. Now below this div, so we can exit this div right there, we can create a new div for the links. So let's give it a class name. That's going to be a class name equal to flex-1.5 W-full flex-row justify between flex-wrap on medium devices margin top 0 and then usually margin top 10. Now of course we have to map over those footer links. So let's say footer links dot map, we get one individual footer link. So let's say footer link, and we want to instantly return something. And that something is going to be yet another div. That div has to have a key because we're mapping over it. So it's going to be footer links, or rather footer link dot key. It's going to have a class name equal to flex-call, ss my-0, usually my4, minimum dash width dash 150 pixels, like so. Now we still cannot see anything, but now we're going to finally map over our list items. So first we're going to have an h4, and this h4 is going to render the footer link dot title. Remember, each series of links is going to have its own title. So let's start with the first one. And then while we're doing that, we can immediately render the UL. an unordered list. Inside of that unordered list, we're going to loop over, once again, footer link dot links dot map. And there we're going to get that individual link. We can also pull the index from here. Now for each link, we want to render an li tag. That li is going to have a key is equal to link.name. And we can also give it a class name right here. That's going to be, let's do font-poppins, font-normal, text-16 pixels. Let's also add a leading of 24 pixels, text-dim white, and on hover, we want to give it a text-secondary. Finally, cursor-pointer. Now, if we save this, we cannot see anything yet because we're not rendering any text. But now if we add a link.name here, you can see all the links. Let's also add a class name for the h4 so we can see the titles as well. So that's going to be class name is equal to font-poppins, font-medium, text-18 pixels. Leading is going to be set to 27 pixels and text-white. And there we go. This is looking beautiful. You can see for our secondary color, we used the colors from the logo. So that is matching as well. And currently the logo seems just a bit too big, but it seems that it is that way on the design. We're going to see later on once we expand it. And we also have to add some margin between the links. So what we have to do is we only want to add the margin on all the links that are not the last in the column. So what we can do is say, if index is not equal to footer.links.length minus 1. So that's going to give us the last one. So if they're not the last one, in that case, we want to render the margin bottom of 4. And then usually we can render the margin bottom of 0 because we don't want to add a margin bottom to the last link. And it looks like I misspelled something. This here was supposed to be footer link.links. So now if we scroll down, you can see that now they have some margin. And it seems to me we're also missing some margin on this h4, rather on the UL. So let's give this a class name equal to list-none, as well as margin top of 4 to divide it just a bit. Now the spacing feels natural, and this is looking much better. The last part of our footer is the bottom part. We have this line right here, we have the copyright, and then we have the social media icons. So let's implement that part. For that, we'll have to exit one div and then the second div as well. And then we'll have to create one final div. This div is going to have a p tag inside of there. So let's first add that p tag. That's going to be this copyright text that we can see right there. So we can copy it from the design. And while we're here, we can also copy the class names for that. We can copy them from the h4 because they're more or less the same. So let's copy this and then paste it here. Now, if we go back, we can see that all rights reserved, but it's going to be just a bit different. So we have font poppins. Font is going to be set to normal here. And we want to add the text-center. Everything else is going to be the same. Finally, we can add a div below the p tag that's going to serve as a container for our social media icons. So we can give it a class name equal to flex, flex-row. On medium devices, margin top 0, and then usually margin top 6. Inside of there, we can map over our social media icons by saying social media.map. We're going to get one social, and then we're going to get the index as well. Now we want to close this properly. And then for each social media, we want to return an image. We can give a key to each one of these images, which is going to be social.id. We want to give it a source, which is going to be social.icon. We can also give it an alt tag, which is going to be social.id as well. And finally, let's give it a class name. But before we do that, let's save it like this to see them. There we go. And now we can style them. So let's add a dynamic string. They're going to have a W of 21 pixels. That's the width. The height is also going to be set to 21 pixels, like this. Object is going to be set to contain, rather object-contain. Cursor is going to be set to pointer. And then the same thing that we've done with margins before, we want to check if the index is not equal to social media dot length minus 1. If it is not, then we want to apply a margin right of 6. And then usually we want to apply a margin right of 0. So let's add it right there. There we go. The only thing left to do is to put these in a row, the text right here and the icons. So let's do that by styling this outer div right there. We can give it a class name equal to w-full. We can also give it a flex, justify dash between, items dash center. On medium devices, flex dash row, usually flex dash call. Padding top is going to be set to 6. Border dash T for top is going to be 1 pixel. Border dash T dash, and then we want to apply a color. So let's do something like 3F3E45. Again, this can be copied from the design. That is that grayish color right there. And now we have our footer. Let's expand it to see it in its full glory. There we go. Who Bank footer right here. If we compare it with the finished site and scroll down, you can see that it is exactly the same, but this color right here seems to be just a bit different. So let's see if the color has been applied in the right way. Let's collapse this just a bit. So that's going to be border dash T and then dash. Let's check it properly. 3F3E45. That should be it. There we go. So now it's a bit more subtle. And with that said, we can close the footer. Believe it or not, we have come to the end of the process of building this phenomenal application together. Let's collapse it and let's see it in its full glory. There we go. Let's scroll through it quickly. Imagine you're building this company for a client. It's a banking client, big corporation, Who Bank, the next generation payment method. 3,800 active users, a lot of trusted companies. They have rewards, they're secured, they have balance transfer, they have some kind of billing and invoicing. We can see the descriptions right there. We can download it on App Store and Google Play. We can get started by using their methods immediately. They have some great testimonials right here by Herman, Steve, and Ken. They have been used by companies like Airbnb and Binance, and we immediately can try their business out or check more information using this footer right here. Everything is looking great. And of course, really important thing to mention is that the mobile version is looking great as well. If we quickly scroll through it, you can notice that everything is fully mobile responsive. So as I keep scrolling, it just feels so natural. Great. With that said, amazing job on building this application. Now I'm going to teach you how to deploy it. To deploy our website, we'll have to create an optimized production build. So let's close all of our files, collapse all of our folders, and let's go to View and then Terminal. We can clear it, and then you can cd into the bank modern app, or however you code your folder, and you can run npm run build. This is going to create an optimized production build. And in just a couple of seconds, you can see that all of our assets are right here alongside the index.html. And all of those files have been put inside of a dist folder. So let's right-click dist and then click Reveal in File Explorer or Open in Finder if you're on Mac. Once you do that, you'll be able to see all of your files right there. But of course now we have to actually deploy them. So with that in mind, we are back on our Hostinger's dashboard. Now in here, you'll be able to find your premium shared hosting. And you'll also find a button to set up a domain if you haven't already. So let's go ahead and click Manage. That's going to open up our hosting account. And then you can search for files. we can click on the file manager. If we now go into the public_HTML folder, you'll see that there is just one default.php file there, which we can delete. So let's just press the remove button and remove it. This is where our dist folder will go. So we can bring back our Bank Modern app and go inside of the dist folder. The only thing you have to do is select all the files and then drag and drop them right here. This is going to upload all of the files and they're going to be up and running in a second. And that's about it. Now we can go back to our hosting panel and we can click our main domain. And in just a couple of seconds, our website is now live on the domain name we chose. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but it loaded incredibly quick. Now we can admire it in its full glory and you can share it with everybody else. You can put it in your portfolio, show it to your friends, or send it to your potential clients. And as you can see by this lock right there, SSL certificate has been automatically included. So we didn't even have to do anything there. Again, the process is incredibly simple and I would recommend Hostinger to everybody. For your portfolio website, for the websites for your clients, or just the projects you're playing with. As you just saw, the process of deploying your website with Hostinger is seamless. So I would recommend it to you not only for websites like these, for your potential clients, but also for your portfolio website. With that said, that's going to be it for this video. Phenomenal job on coming this far and building this great application out. Once again, if we want to check another website that is on Hostinger servers, that's going to be jsmastery.pro. This is another beautiful website I've created, but again, that's not the main point. The main point are these project-based courses that you can use to level up your development skills right away. You can go ahead and choose the Filmpire one if you want to polish your React skills, and then if you want to dive into the new and uncharted territory of Web3, the NFT Marketplace project is for you. And if you didn't see it at the beginning, there is also the free guides section. So you can get a lot of free guides entirely for free. You can use this as reference books, ebooks, or entire roadmaps. With that said, amazing job on coming to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.